Hello everyone and welcome to a new cosplay review. And some of you may remember a long time ago, back when I was first getting into doing cosplay reviews, I asked you guys what websites you most would like to see, and one of the highest voted ones was CosplaySky. So I decided to reach out to them, see if they want to partner for review. So that's what we are going to be doing today. I have in the past done a review of their subsidiary, which is CosHD. That was my first ever cosplay review video. So I guess technically I have kind of reviewed this company before, but I haven't actually reviewed CosplaySky in and of itself. I'm excited to share this review for you guys. I overall had a very positive experience with the cosplay that I will be showing you. My usual disclaimer, this is not a paid video or review. However, the cosplay in question that you will be seeing in this video was given to me for free for the purpose of doing an honest review. And regardless of whether something is gifted, whether it's a sponsored video, whether I buy it with my own money, I'm always going to be completely honest about how I feel about a given product or service. This could be a really kind of like in-depth review. There's a lot of different little pieces to this cosplay, and I'm going to be taking the time to talk about each of them. I did also make a few adjustments to this cosplay, so I will be showing what it looked like before versus what I did to it and explaining why I decided to do that. The cosplay that I am going to be reviewing is their Ashe cosplay from Overwatch. Another thing that's nice about this review is that I've had the opportunity to wear this cosplay to 2 different conventions. So I'm excited to be able to give you guys quite an in-depth review and look on this cosplay. So without any further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to basically be going piece by piece through all the different parts of this cosplay and just telling you guys how I feel about it. So let's jump into that. So the first part of the cosplay that we're going to be talking about is her vest. So just kind of in general, the same thing that I'll be saying for all of these pieces is that the craftsmanship is very clean. The choice of materials for each of the pieces was very well chosen, and it really shows that they put a lot of effort into making it as accurate as possible. So I really appreciate that. I'll obviously be pointing out specific examples as I'm going through. So starting out with the vest, it's fully lined. All of the stitch work is really clean. It has this pleather material on the outside, which is the absolute perfect choice of material for this. That's exactly what I would expect it to be. And then it has a gray faux suede for the gray interior. Overall, really good choice of materials, and the craftsmanship was fantastic. It held up really well during the convention. It fit like an absolute glove. It was really nice and crisp and form-fitting and very comfortable to wear. The notions as well, so the zipper and then we have the buckle here, is totally accurate to her design. It has the zipper here on the faux pocket, and then what's absolutely spectacular is the patch on the back. Absolutely gorgeous, beautifully made, beautifully embroidered, totally accurate. A couple alterations that I did decide to make. I decided to add some bias tape here around the collar just because, and I'll show you guys what it looked like before. The actual black around that was just a strip that was attached, and so you could see the gray around the edges, whereas canonically it's supposed to be all black. So that wasn't like a huge deal. Obviously that's something that most people wouldn't have a problem with. It's just something where I preferred the look of it being all black. So I just decided to go ahead and slap some bias tape on there. The other thing that I have is a snap here, and this has to do with the armor pieces, so I'll be talking about why I added that later on. And then the other thing that I decided to do was just to tack this part down, because obviously it's supposed to lie flat, but whenever I would put it on, it would kind of go up a little bit, and that would kind of mess with the overall look and like color blocking of the cosplay, so I decided to just simply tack this down. The only complaint that I have about the vest is the gold that they've decided here I find is a little bit too shiny for my liking. Obviously it's not like a deal breaker, but my preference would be if it was kind of more of a muted gold. I might at some point go over it and cover it with some Mod Podge, and then go over that with some gold paint and then another coat of Mod Podge to seal it in there, just to make it more to my liking. The other thing that kind of bugs me, we have the gold zipper here. It has gold plating on the front, but on the back it's just a regular yellow zipper. So when you have this part of the collar that obviously lies flat and lies open, you just have yellow that shows. You don't have the gold going on both sides. So I do wish that the gold was on both sides of the zipper, because the yellow just doesn't look super nice, and that is a difficult thing to remedy. I mean, I guess you could try going in there and like sanding it and then trying to like paint it, I guess, but it would be very challenging. So that's something that kind of bugs me. It kind of interrupts the aesthetic here, but that's pretty minor. It doesn't really show up in photos, especially when you're photographing it from a distance. You really can't tell. That's the only issue that I have with the vest. Everything else is great. Next part we're going to move on to are the pants. The pants, again, I was really happy with in terms of the craftsmanship, in terms of accuracy, and in terms of fit. They're really snug, they're very comfortable, and they fit like skinny jeans, which is exactly what you want. Overall, a really solid piece of the cosplay. What I really like is that the seam work here on the pleather part is totally accurate. So they've added all of these faux seams here to match how the seams on her pants look. It really shows that they put a lot of consideration and a lot of attention to detail into that. The knee pads are made of pleather and they're stuffed a little bit. That's really common with these pre-made cosplays. Any part of the cosplay that would normally be made out of like foam or plastic is always going to be made with pleather. As far as pre-made cosplays go, this is a totally standard thing. I did make a little bit of an alteration to it, which I will talk about in a second. On the other side, we have the little thigh pouch. This is probably the only part of the cosplay that I really had any real issues with, and they are very easy to fix. Overall, it is very accurate. It's very nicely made. It has two straps to keep it up. They're very nicely made and very nicely reinforced. As you can see, the whole thing is made out of pleather, so a good choice of material for what it is. The only issues that I had was that this little flap does not stay down. The only thing there to keep it down is this, and obviously it keeps, you know, coming out of that. So if you wanted that to stay down, you would have to add a little snap to it or something, or some Velcro or whatever. That's something that I obviously have not done yet. But yeah, whenever I was taking photos, I had to keep like pushing it down to make sure that it wasn't popping up. So that's kind of a minor issue. The real issue that I had was that it kept slipping down. It is meant to stay up, and they do have Velcro closures on each of the straps. Even if you like attempt to put on the tightest setting, it does constantly fall down as you're walking. So the first time I ever wore that, that was a reoccurring issue, was me having to continuously pull it up. I tried safety pinning it and everything. And then for my second time wearing it, I just sewed it directly to the pants. But that's the only real issue, but it is a very easy fix. Like I said, I did make an alteration to the knee pads. Like I said, with the vest, the choice of pleather was very shiny and kind of artificial looking, and that's not a huge issue for like small parts like the trim on the vest. But when you had these really big pieces that were really shiny, for me, it made it look more like it was just pleather being made to look like metal knee pads. So I went in, I covered the pleather with a layer of Mod Podge, and then I went over it with some gold and copper paint. And from a distance, I think that really does the job. This is an alteration that I wasn't sure if I should do it, but I'm really happy that I did it. But again, that was just a personal preference. I feel like most people probably won't really care about how the knee pads look, but that is something that I decided to do. Next thing we're gonna look at is what I like to dub the butt cape, probably a good name for it. So this is the part that goes under the vest, and it basically makes it look like you're wearing a trench coat. I'm really happy with this piece. My absolute favorite part of it is the choice of material that they have for this part. This is all pleather. The pattern here is totally accurate. Obviously they could have just made it plain pleather, but they went the extra mile to make it this accurate printed pleather. But the other nice thing is that this is a 3-dimensional print. So it's not just like flat printed, if that makes sense. All of these little bumps here are like actually 3-dimensional. That really adds to the look. It looks awesome. Again, all of the work here with all the different seams and everything are totally accurate to her design. Like I said, you can tell that they put a lot of effort into making it as accurate as possible, so I'm really happy with that. It is lined, so it has a nice clean edge. The stitch work is really nice and clean. Overall, I was very, very happy with this. Very impressed when I first saw it. It fits really well. In the front here, this part, obviously this goes around your waist underneath the vest, so you don't actually see this part. And then these parts go around your legs. These again are Velcro, and the Velcro actually held together really well. The only part where the Velcro didn't work super well was actually this part that goes around the waist. This part for me did keep coming undone throughout the day just because you have so much motion, right? With your waist, you're constantly like bending, right? It's a really kind of high movement area. So this just didn't stay together for me. So there were some times when I was taking photos, I noticed that since they'd come undone, they were peeking out from under the vest. So one thing that I would recommend would be to swap these out for a pair of clasps to keep it on better. The next part that we're going to talk about is the blouse. Again, really nicely made, really clean seam work. One thing that I really like that they did is they used a gray thread around the cuffs and around the collar, which is something that hers has. So that was a really good call on their part. This fit like an absolute glove. And I really like actually that it has a zipper rather than buttons. You don't see this part of the blouse underneath the vest, so like it's not even necessary to put buttons, right? That just makes it way easier to put on, take off. So I really liked that detail. I think that was a really good call on their part. The only issue I had with the blouse is that it's supposed to have gold little diamonds on the cuff, and it did initially have them, but at some point they just fell off. And they didn't even like leave any sort of like glue residue or anything. Like they just fell off. So I had this issue where I was putting on the blouse and I was like, wait, isn't there supposed to be gold? And I was looking to see if like maybe there was glue residue. You know, maybe they just like came off in the wash or whatever, but there was no residue. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm just crazy thinking that there were diamonds on our sleeve cuffs, but they are supposed to be there. And they were at one point on this blouse. And then at some point, I don't really know when, I don't really know how, they just like clean came off. It's an easy thing to fix. I have a bunch of gold pleather that I can just make new ones with, but that is obviously an issue. I think they were just pieces of gold pleather that they glued on, so obviously whatever glue they're using, they need to get a stronger one or have them hand stitched or something. Next part is the tie. This one, again, really comes down to personal preference. When I first unboxed this, I wasn't super happy with how shiny the fabric looked, so I actually ended up remaking it. I made my own with a more matte fabric, and I made a faux tie, so I didn't have to actually tie it correctly. I could just put it on and off, but I took the original gold loopy things from this tie and put it onto the new tie. Again, this is a total personal preference thing. I feel like most people wouldn't have a problem with the material that this tie is made out of, and as for the tie itself, like, it's really nicely made. Everything is really clean. There's nothing wrong with it. Just for my own personal preference, I preferred to make my own tie. I also personally like the idea of making a fake tie better, just because having to figure out how to tie a tie while making sure that these things were going to be in the right place was kind of something that I struggled with, so I decided it would just be easier to make a faux tie and I can just put it on and everything will sit how it's supposed to. So next part we're going to talk about is the hat. I love the hat. When it came to the idea of making the cosplay, this was the part that was the most daunting, just getting it like the right shape, the right look, the right size and everything, right? Most black cowboy hats don't have as big of a brim as hers do, so I was really impressed with the craftsmanship on this. It held up extremely well. It's all made of pleather, so the perfect choice of materials, very solidly made. One thing that I was worried about was whether my head was going to fit in it with the wig on, but I have to say it fit absolutely perfectly. I had no issues. I didn't have to fasten this to my wig at all, with the exception of like one time when I was wearing it and there was a big gust of wind. It stayed on super well during all the photo shoots and me running around the con, so I'm really happy with the hat. One alteration that I decided to make, and again, this was just totally personal preference. So this emblem here, this is made of rubber. The color on it was really muted and didn't match all the other gold parts of the cosplay. So I decided to again go over it with some Mod Podge and then go over it with some paint and then another sealing layer of Mod Podge. Overall, I'm really happy with it. Again, this was a really quick and easy thing to do and was totally personal preference. Like, obviously you don't have to do that if you do buy the cosplay. I just preferred that it wasn't that muted gold. But aside from that, I think it's great. It's accurate, really comfortable, fits super well. So everything that I would hope for. Yeah, I really liked it. All right, we're getting down to it. Next part we're going to talk about is the belt. It's all made of pleather. Everything's nicely reinforced and they designed it really well. It sits on your hips exactly as it's supposed to, looks really accurate and fits really well. The closure that it uses is some Velcro, so there's a little bit of room to adjust it if you need to. The only thing that I decided to alter with it was this buckle. This is made of rubber. One thing that I wanted to mention about the hat and this, I like that they used rubber because that's not going to get damaged at all, right? It's going to hold up really well. It's not going to get like damaged or dented or anything, so that was a really good choice on their part. The only alteration that I decided to make was, since it was rubbery, it came matte, and so I just decided to throw some Mod Podge on there just to make it shinier. So again, personal preference, super easy alteration to make. Then on the back, this is where the grenades go. This elastic did not come with it. I put it on myself. It came just plain without anything on there. I think that was a really good call on their part because since it doesn't come with the grenade, you're obviously going to be making them yourself, and everyone's going to make their grenades like different sizes and everything. So I like that they kept this as kind of like a blank slate for whatever size of grenade you wanted to add. Next part we're going to talk about is the armor. The armor is made all of pleather. Like I said, that's very standard for pre-made cosplays. For being pleather, I think it does a really good job of, you know, looking like armor. The only alteration I had to make on this piece, which is the piece that goes on the arm like that, is I had to tighten these elastics here just because they were too loose and it kept falling off. And then the other part we have is the part that goes on the shoulder like that. Again, I think it looks great, especially being pleather and working with what they have to work with. I think it definitely does the job. It looks really good in photos. I like that both pieces are lined and it conforms to the arm really well, and it's really easy to move around in. It was all very comfortable to wear. The only thing that I had to do was I needed to add a snap, and the snap that I showed you guys on the vest, that's what I was talking about. That's the anchor for this snap, so that it can just attach to the vest like that, because there was no other method of keeping it on. So when I was first wearing it, it would constantly like fall down. Obviously that's not a huge issue. It's not a huge thing to do yourself, but it would be nice if that's something that the cosplay came with, because you can't really wear it like without that. It's just really impractical not having it actually anchored to the shoulder. So we are finally at the last pieces of this cosplay. That is the gloves, and the bracelet. So the bracelet, just like all the other faux metal pieces, is made of pleather. I was a little bit worried at first how this would work. Obviously a metal bracelet would be better, but this is what it comes with, and it actually looks really good in photos. I was actually really happy with it. I was worried that like this would show. I was worried that it would look really fake and be like really jarring, but it worked really well. Obviously, if you wanted something more accurate and more substantial, you would want to look for a gold bracelet, but for the bracelet that it comes with, I think it worked really well. And then the gloves, these are again pleather gloves. They fit really well and they look great. They're all totally accurate, and again, it looks really good in photos, especially being pleather. It does hold up. There are a few loose threads here, but that's pretty normal with gloves, and that's an easy enough thing to just snip off. The only real issue I have with it is that the very top of this gold piece is not actually fastened just because it's so small. So it does have a tendency to like stick up like that and bend back and kind of move around. You can see it on the other side. So that is something that I will have to go in with some glue and just stick it down there to keep it in. But you know, it's an easy enough thing to fix. And that brings us to all of the different pieces of their Ashe cosplay. Overall, I'm really happy with this cosplay. There were a lot of kind of little alterations that I had to make, but like I've said in the past, it's a really normal part of buying pre-made cosplays. The cosplay, like in of itself, I was very, very impressed with when I first took it out, when I first unboxed it, when I first wore it. I was like, yeah, this is a really nice cosplay. The important things, you know, it fits really well. The choice of material is really great. It's a very solid construction. Again, it's held up super well for the 2 full days that I've worn it at a convention, and it looks great in photos. There were no real glaring issues, I guess, aside from the little leg pouch constantly falling down, but that was again a very easy thing to fix. So overall, I'm really impressed with CosplaySky. Definitely give them a positive rating. If you guys want to go check out CosplaySky, you can use the code SKY10 for 10% off of your order. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, that you found it helpful. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you guys all next time. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye.